Hey yo, hey yo.
Hey, everybody.
Hey man, if you could just make sure the audio on your end, you have all the little check boxes there.
Yes, let me.
I'm not getting any echo, but just to
Yep,
double check.
yep, all good.
Cool. All right, friends, welcome to today's web class. Thank you for being here. Today is a definitely a special event. We have a guest star here with us by the name of Amanda. And we wanted to switch things up a little bit here in the group and give you guys an opportunity to get firsthand experience from people who've gone through some of the new work that we've been bringing through. I know a lot of you guys are new to the group, probably your first live stream. If it is, feel free to say hello in the comment box below. Just say hi and where you're from. And if it's your first time, also just let us know so we can give a fairly welcome to you as well. Now, if you are here and this is the absolute first time you're seeing these two jokers on the screen, my name is Guy
Calling
Ferdman.
Joker.
I'll be a joker. Elon will be the buff, good-looking guy any other screen. Uh, and to my left or my right, depending on how your screen looks, that is Elon Ferdman. No coincidence that we have the same last name. We actually do have the same mommy, and
Patty.
we've just ironically been on this incredible personal growth journey together for about as long as it's gone on, which is almost 2 decades now. So if you're first in this group, obviously you know the Old Souls and Seekers name, but you might not know that we are actually the founders of a company called Satori Prime, which you can there you go. You can kind of see behind Elon's head, and that's been as Elon Vanna White's our company. That's been the company that we've developed over the last decade, which has gone through a lot of different transitions from teaching people high-end marketing and sales practices to really what our heart's work is, which is personal and spiritual development. And about 6 months ago, we took this we did this incredibly brave and courageous thing where we shut down all business operations, and we decided that if the world was going to go take a little nap, then so were we. And we took a 6 week sabbatical. And during that time, we wanted to kind of run a test on reality, okay, so to speak. And that test was to see somebody had proposed kind of a challenge to us, and they said, "Hey, can you live in so much energetic attunement and alignment that if you didn't get out of bed for 3 weeks, that your business would keep running, you'd keep growing your income, you'd keep creating more well-being and stability, sustainability, connection, and love in your life? Could you be the type of person that sits in that kind of pocket of energy and still persevere, still not get stuck in what so many of us get stuck in, which is constantly trying to change our external circumstances to make ourselves feel better?" So we took this 6 week sabbatical. We literally shut down, closed down all the group training programs, personal clients, didn't do anything. And what we did during those six weeks was basically we meditated. We meditated and we worked on being in coherence, which is the practices that we had implemented for almost the last 5 years, but we decided to do that in an intense way. And what happened during those 6 weeks is our business grew, our stability in our system grew, our feeling of well-being grew, and it gave us all this inspiration to take our company to our next level, which is to start creating what we're doing in this group right now, which is to start creating the type of group training programs that we completely transitioned ourselves away from strictly doing mindset work to really helping people come into this new awareness, this new human being experience that's palpable and available on our planet, and almost nobody is teaching right now. So that's really been what's going on. And the reason Amanda's here is because she's been part of this new crop of people that have gone through our work, that have gone through this transition. So we'll bring her out here in just a minute to kind of share her stories with you. Again, if you have any questions, if you want to chime in, if you want to let us know where you're from, let us know that you're new, please use the comment box below this video. And I said a lot, so I'll let Elon chime in here also, and then we'll bring Amanda right out.
No, just bring Amanda out and let's get to it.
All right. Hello, lovely lady.
Hello. How are you both?
We're so good.
Good.
You got my favorite color behind you.
Yeah, I noticed that when I talked to you the other day, you were wearing my favorite color. So yeah, I'm in an orange phase.
That's it. Me too. I've been in orange phase for quite some time. So Amanda, before we jump into kind of like what's been opening up in your life, why don't you just give people a little bit of background about who you are, and also share, you had shared with me like how you came to find Satori Prime and where you were at in life. So why don't you start with that?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'll try to make that long story as short as possible. But no, my name's Amanda Iosa. Live up in Maine on the east coast of the U.S. And I discovered Satori Prime about 2.5, 3 years ago. Prior to that, I had been in a situation where my health had really declined. I've had type 1 diabetes since I was a little kid, but that had really taken a turn for the worst, and wound up leaving my job and was considering applying for total disability because I was that sick at the time. And had left my job, moved back home, like in my mid 30s, and I moved back home at the time and was really in a dark place. And I had a friend at the time who was sort of starting up his own personal coaching practice, and was working with him for a while and did off and on for a couple of years. Um, and I wound up moving and was house sitting for a friend for a while. And while I was on that sort of little sabbatical, I just came across the podcast and started just binging it. So I'm an artist, so I'd be sitting and painting and just listening to episode after episode. I just couldn't get enough. And it's just something about your spirits, your energy, just it wasn't anything palpable, but I was so just sucked in and was like, yes, this is like my tribe, this is my alignment, this is it.
That's
And
amazing.
yeah, and so a couple years went by. I kind of hung out on the edges. I was a part of the collective for a while when that was going, and did a few of the live webinar freebie things. But this past spring, just before your sabbatical, I dived in and did the 2-day live event that was sort of the beginning of this new phase. Um, and that was phenomenal, and really started the process of kind of cracking that shell and opening things up for me, and getting into that deeper part of myself. And then did the live event again about a month ago, the fall one, and that just rocked my world. and and I mean, you guys can attest to that. I had quite an amazing experience in the event, but my life has done a complete 180. My internal experience of what life is worlds apart from what it was a month ago.
Amazing.
And it's, to put it very simply, pretty high on life right now, but it's a very deep, like deep calls unto deep cleansing and healing, and just coming into what really feels like an ancient version of myself.
Wow.
So it's,
Well,
and
we're
it's,
going to get into more of the specifics, but
Mhm.
something that I think there's a lot of people who are in this group, and maybe even not, that listen to our podcast for a long time. They get a tremendous amount of value from it. I would love for you to speak to the difference for you between listening to the podcast on your own and actually attending a 2-day live event with us.
Absolutely. The podcast has been phenomenal, but it's sort of the difference trying to think of a good analogy. I mean, you're sort of just an observer. And,
Mm.
anything can get absorbed, just through the field and, all that. And I think a lot of it did for me. A lot of things transformed that I had no idea was even happening. But to do the 2-day live event and then to come back and do, the slightly different version of it, um, in a very focused, present way, um, just brought in such a, to move from my headspace and to start to learn to drop into my being, drop into my body, experiment with that subtle awareness, and feel things shift and move, and wake up the day after, wake up on day 2 of the live event and look in the mirror and not even recognize myself. um, but just, a it's a lived experience. It's not just something you're pondering or thinking about or, doing mindset work or going through a list of all, the steps of things you're supposed to do. It's something that comes in and shifts your being,
Yeah.
and you get to watch that happen.
Yeah.
And just to be open to that and go with the flow and let, that divine intelligence that you guys talk about do its work and just go
Yeah.
along for the ride is it's unbelievable. There are no words. So,
Beautiful. It's
yeah.
like, if I could just wrap it in an analogy, it's almost like the difference between watching a sports game from the stands and then the live event is like getting on the court and actually starting to play yourself. Would you say that's accurate?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And learning the finesse of what it is. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. So, out of curiosity, are there like one or two things? I know you mentioned, and this was actually really funny because Amanda, during the event on day 2, everyone was already remarking to Amanda how different she looked, and she hadn't even thought about it. And she was remarking how she walked by a mirror at some point and actually was shocked herself to look back and couldn't see the person that she was used to seeing. So, it was
Mhm.
really cool. But other than that, could you maybe share like one or two things that really shifted for you out of starting to do this work?
Oh, definitely. Things it's been coming fast and furious since that event a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
But it's the biggest shift for me, having, you know, grown up in a family of worriers and having had medical issues, that people say medical issues throughout my life. Um, I have always been accustomed to living in a state of fear all the time. And to discover just how much of that was trapped in my body. And I mean, I'm still processing layers of it out of my stomach. It's like I've had this rock hard shell of protection around me out of all these years of conditioned, oh, worry about everything, be afraid of the future, you know, get ahead of everything and think about every little thing to fix it before it's a problem. That just this constant tension, was what I lived with. And in the last several weeks, and even very rapidly right after that event, but it just continues to unfold, is this completely new, beautiful state of well being and rest and calm I mean, physically in my body. And I, one thing this summer, I took up sea kayaking, which is something I've always wanted to do. And it's amazing the image that kept coming into my head directly after the event, as I'd be going through my day, I'd be at my job, and I felt like whenever I'd walk anywhere, it was as if I was gliding at, like, you're cutting through still water.
Wow.
And I just had this very intuitive, powerful sense that this new energy that I'm carrying, just like the wake of a boat starts small and spreads out and becomes these big waves that affect everything, that my energy was like that in the world. And everywhere I moved, it was flowing out behind me.
Wow.
And that, I was like this ambassador of this energy. but that I literally felt like I was gliding through everything I did with ease and safety and peace. And I mean, it is the complete opposite of the place that I lived from in my internal world before that. So
Love that
yeah.
analogy.
Hmm.
I love the analogy of like the wake gets bigger and affects everyone. You also shared with me a story about, you said you came from a warrior family. And just
Hmm.
uh, clarify, not warriors like, oh, like warriors, like worry about everything.
Hmm.
Um, and so you were born into a family with parents who worried about everything. And then you shared this incredible story with me about that just knocked your socks off about how this work doesn't only impact you, but just unknowingly starts to impact others. Would you mind sharing that?
Oh yes. I'm still reeling from it, and even and experiencing new parts of that. It keeps unfolding. So
Sure.
um, I have a very close relationship with my parents. I'm an only child, and they were actually headed north up here to see me and work on a family property we have up here. And they were, I mean, my parents are in their mid to late 70s, and they had have a couple little dogs they had with them, and their car completely broke down. I mean, died. The engine was just done on the side of a busy highway, halfway between where they live and here. So they were about 500 miles away and 500 miles from home. And they call me to tell me, okay, the engine just blew up in the car. Like, it's done, it's toast. And my first thing that I noticed was like, wait, I'm not panicking. I mean, I hear this news, I processed it, and I was able to drop into them and just go, okay, I'm going to feel through this instead of letting my mind completely go bananas over what's happening.
Hmm.
Um, with every fear of like, my parents are going to catch COVID and like, I mean, it could have gone anywhere, but it didn't. And so I hear from them a couple hours later about how it's going and, have they gotten a tow truck yet and all this. And they're completely calm. And I'm just like, they're still on the side of the highway and they're calm. Like, okay. Well, as this day finishes up and, unfolds, they're on the phone with me. They'd, managed to get the car towed and rented a car so they could turn around and take their stuff and go back. And both of my parents are laughing and interrupting each other to tell me about all the wonderful things that happened and how helpful people were and how smoothly it all went. And they don't even care that their car's dead and has to go to the junkyard. And they still don't. It's happened a week and a half ago, and they still don't. But they they were just full of joy and relaxed and like all excited, and went home and repacked and got in their other car and drove straight back up here, and they're up here now. I saw them this past weekend, and we had a wonderful interaction, and just not the usual nitpicky stuff that happens. And it was incredible. But
Wow.
this little bit, I mean, I've barely scratched the surface with this work. I did the 2-day events, which are amazing, but I haven't dug deep into this work yet. But it's already affected me so much that it's also affecting those I'm in close relationship with. It's going back in time and healing these family wounds. And my parents reacted to this very stressful, scary situation in the opposite way that I've ever seen them do.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they're still at ease with the whole thing. They're just going with the flow.
Yeah.
And that's not anything like the parents I know. So
Who are you, mom
it's
and
so
dad? Have you been
beautiful. I
kidnapped by
know.
aliens?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so beautiful. And I told Elon, I said, if that's all that I get out of this work is seeing my family heal and be able to be at rest and feel safe and start to live from well-being, then that's worth everything to me. I don't care what else I get. That's worth everything to me. So it's so beautiful to see how it affects, our healing is everybody's healing that's around
Yeah.
us. So, yeah.
Yeah, so I want to give a little bit of a context. So for those of you guys who are listening, you're like, what the hell? So 'cause it might sound like Amanda was actually doing something or having conversations with her parents in order for them to respond differently, and that's not what she did. And I do want to talk about how this is a transition from just solely doing mindset work, which by the way, we're not putting down. We're just saying has certain constraints. And the constraints are is that it's always going to be linear in process, right? The mind is always going to be looking from there. It's always going to be some sort of conditioning that you're trying to uncondition, and that conditioning is coming from, well, if I become more aware, I'll be able to manage this conditioning better. But then you find yourself kind of annoyed and in this repetition of like constantly managing the same stuff. So how many of you guys just in the chat box say like you've done a lot of work and then you find yourself kind of dealing with the same issue over and over again? Just say yes in the chat box, right? So we kind of know that we're speaking to the right people here. And that's kind of where we found ourselves about a dozen years into this process. We're like, hey, look, if we've invested close to $1 million now, it's over $1 million. We've coached tens of thousands of people. And with the amount of investment and discipline that we have day in, day out work, we're still dealing with the same thing over and over again. It's like, really, what are the chances for other people to heal? And that's a key word here, because doing mindset work is very different than doing healing work. We like to split things up into two camps where we say you can either do growing up work, which is what Amanda was really good at, which is what most of you guys are really good at. And then there's like the waking up work. And what we do now is we actually bridge this process for people. But the beautiful part about starting to become aware of this subtle energy system, and this is what we practice with people, is that it connects you to the unified field. And there's no way that when you connect to a unified field that you're not going to be impacting not just yourself, but everybody who's closely associated, and even those who are not. Because if you want to think about it, this energy allows for an energy of influence. If you think about the way that like herds of animals or schools of fish move together, where there might be like a predator over there in a distance, right? And there's certain animals in the herd that are becoming aware of that and becoming vigilant of that. And then as there's movement from the predator, there's almost like an influential energy that goes out into the herd, and it passes through like a state of influence. And without any words, the whole herd can turn and start moving towards safety. This energy that animals have been using to get all over the planet, like whales and birds used to migrate and all this kind of stuff, is absolutely available beyond the five senses that most people are living their reality in, and then informing their reality based on those five senses. This could be called sixth sensory perception, but again, that's been dogmatized and turned into a lot of weird shit, where this is really just using this very subtle awareness. And the moment that you notice it, it's just like the first time someone told you that you have a little voice in your head and you're not actually that little voice, you can listen to it. The awareness just starts growing, expounding, and really start impacting everywhere. So where a lot of quote unquote therapy that is trying to heal you will take you back to like an originating incident, what they don't teach you is how to start viewing not the incident, but the sensory experience that's there, and explore it not from, oh my god, this is happening to me and this is so painful, but actually unmerging from the experience and watching it from a much higher state. And in that state, all there is unconditional love, there's well-being, there's stability, and suddenly even with the most difficult experiences of your life become this experience where you're like, oh, I could be with that. And the energy that is clogged up in the system, that's programmed with your mind, can actually have this opportunity to move through. And then again, all this magic could happen. Now that's like kind of like high level, but here's what I want to say about that. People's minds, like Amanda's minds and their life, right? Your brain is comprised of just trillions of these neuronal connections. And the things that are quote unquote negative in your life are these things that have been entrained and patterned into you, like a knee-jerk reaction. Something happens and there's like this reaction that I'm telling you right now, you can't stop. And no matter how much mindset work you do, you will not get better at managing it because it happens faster than thought, right? It happens at the speed of awareness. And awareness, we say, is faster than the speed of light. So it happens so quickly that there's no amount of management that you can do. So what we want to get you guys is aware of how to be with the system so that not a human being or some process is coming along and saying, oh, yeah, I have a 3-step process that's going to heal that, because there's no human being on the planet that can possibly have awareness over how the trillions of neurons in your brains are wired, and then how that impacts your body, how that causes stress or anxiety or overwhelm. Nobody has the keys to that. However, your own smart body, your own body intelligence that is divinely connected to this intelligent unified field, absolutely knows how to reorganize that towards well-being. And no matter where we look out in nature, you will see that nature is organized around well-being and neutrality. It's always about creating balance. And your body is the same way, which is why every time you cut a finger, it repairs itself, or you break a bone, it repairs itself. It's never like the body's like, no, not this time. Like you handle it. So part of what there is starting to learn how to work with the innate intelligence of your body in order for these kind of experiences to occur. And that's what Amanda's talking about, that it not only impacts her personal experience, but then it's like this influencer, just like a certain animal will pass along that information to a different animal, this vibration, this frequency, this resonance starts impacting everyone around you, whether you have a conversation with them about it or not. Doesn't matter. You don't have to go and be like, hey, by the way, let's reframe our whole life. It certainly doesn't matter. And that's what starts shocking you, is that you start walking around your life and you start noticing that like all the people in it are somehow getting this transformation along with you, and you didn't have to put in all this incredible effort or have these long-winded conversations or communications, although that might be appropriate at times. Yeah, go ahead.
And when you were listening to the podcast and kind of quote unquote sitting on the sidelines, what was stopping you from getting on the court?
My stories at the time.
What was the story at the time?
The story at the time, of course, I'd gone through all that health stuff and so on, but I mean, and it's really like my lifelong story was, that I wasn't good enough, I wasn't worth it, that, I would fail, that, how can I, and also like, you'll never have the money for that, you'll never be able to follow through with it, you'll, just so many things that all just come down to safe. And also I didn't feel safe stepping into doing anything. The big shift I had during the 2-day event was simply about core things that happened to me in formative moments, not just formative years, but when I entered the world, that my system learned that I wasn't safe. So I just didn't have the faith in myself at the time to step off that cliff, so to speak, and just to take the risk and, for myself, to give myself that worth, that I'm worth the work or the investment or what have you. And that's what's really changed in starting to shift into this different place of being in my system, getting a taste of what well-being really feels like in real experience, and being able to have the trust and the safety in this, divine flow, to just surrender and go with it, and step forward into whatever really feels like it's for, in my best alignment and for, for my best. And
Amazing.
so it's just effortless to say yes to things at this point. and and by no means in the last few months, I mean, I'm not living in a mansion, I haven't won the lottery or anything like that. My life is pretty usual. I've got a regular job and what have you, but my experience of life on the inside is what's completely different. And so I trust that whatever I need to continue this aligned path will just show up when I need it to. And I never used to have that. It was always like, oh, you're never going to have what you need. You're all on your own. You got to figure it out yourself. And no, I feel supported. It's completely different. So
Wow.
it's
So good.
It's that internal world is is so different. I could care less what changes on the externals if I keep going deeper with this internal experience. So
Same here.
Yeah.
I want to read this, right? Because this is exactly what we're kind of talking about. I can't see who the user is because I'm not in the group, but it says it comes out with triggers. I have lots of years of training, CBT, DBT, meditation. I would say manage well, function, and perform at a very high level. Yet the core is unresolved. Healing has remained elusive. And that is what we have found with so many modalities and therapies. It's like it informs the mind about how to like manage yourself better, but what you end up doing is just doing a lot of managing.
Yeah.
And it actually takes you out of the presence. It doesn't allow you to really be with the experience because you can't think about how to be in the experience. You either are in the experience or you're not in the experience. Oftentimes there are certain facets, like a container that gets to be created in order like for a human being to sit and have healing work done. So I'm going to tell you guys flat out, Elon and I are not healers. True and genuine healers, it is a generational thing. It is passed down from like indigenous cultures how to do energetic healing work. Like we work with a family down in Colombia that we take our personal clients to go drink ayahuasca once a year, and that to us is like mind-blowing magic what those people can do. But the shamanista we work with has been drinking that medicine since she's 7 years old, and she's now 71 years old. Right? That's a lineage passed down of a healing modality and energetic alignment that she's passing through. What Elon and I have been able to process in our own life or get to is to awaken a subtle awareness within us that I'm going to tell you, it's going to sound woo-woo, but has basically allowed us to track our own energy, right? Like we can actually track our own energy bodies. So when we put our awareness on another human being, it's like hooking into their nervous system, and we can actually start tracking their energy body and the shifts that are happening inside of it. So Amanda's shaking her head because when you first see it, it's like it looks like sci-fi. I remember. Is it okay if I share that from the first event? What happened
I
with
was
the?
just gonna, yeah.
Yeah. Why don't you tell them? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned, I have type 1 diabetes and I wear an insulin pump. And, I'm kind of in it in this session we're having in the event and completely forgot all about the fact that I was wearing it. And then guy says, "Oh, you've got this spot on your side." And it's like something's stabbing you. And I'm like, "Okay, I don't feel any energy there. This is weird." Okay. And I reach down and touch it, and it's where my insulin pump site was inserted that day. And he didn't even know I had diabetes or was wearing this device or anything. And he could sense that my body was saying, "Yes, there's something stabbing your side." So I just sat there with my jaw hanging up. Whoa. But yeah, that really happened.
That really happens. And that
Yeah.
stuff happens a lot because there's a tracking of the energetic field that just, and this is not something Elon and I work towards. We weren't doing necessarily work to achieve that. In fact, we talk a lot about how achievement is actually slowing people's process and healing down. It's when you can let go of all that, let go of all the conditioning, and just allow for divine intelligence to do the work, right? So what we're essentially doing is we're just tapping into that field and then getting information for that field for people. But Elon and I are not doing the healing. We don't know how your neurons are organized. We don't know your stress patterns or your overwhelm, although we're pretty fucking insightful after 20 years of working with people. We can notice really subtle things about people's system, and that's just come with lots of practice and again coaching tens of thousands of people and having a daily discipline in our own lives. But this is the magic of this work, is that by it's almost like we're transposing this awareness and allowing other people to notice it in their own systems. And the moment that you notice that you have this subtle awareness within your system, you start noticing these fractional things that are happening throughout your day. But it's not like now the mind's getting involved and you're like, oh, what's happening down there? You're actually creating fluidity in the system so the energy can just keep moving. Things don't get bound and stuck. Your mind doesn't have to process and respond to everything. And that's when you start getting what Amanda's pointing out, which is this stability, this well-being, these very long windows of just feeling like everything is great. So I want you to just imagine here, like how many of you guys go throughout your day and you know that there's worry and concern, kind of like she was talking about her parents, and that you're actually taking action in your life in order to try to resolve that worry and concern. right? So how many of you guys are doing that? You just say yes in the chat box. And if you're doing that, there's nothing wrong with that, first of all, because most of humanity is doing that. But what you end up getting is that the energy that's taking the action, right? Like energy begets energy. If you create something with a certain energy, it basically is like a boomerang effect. At first, it might look like you've resolved the issue, but then it comes around again. It's like, damn, this is back again. And it's usually bigger and more prominent than it was before. And for a lot of people, this is because most of the planet, and I would argue that at least 99.9% of the planet is operating out of a fight or a flight or a freeze response. So it means that they're actually creating from that place all the time. What we're what we're working with is we're actually helping people find stability and well-being in their system and making this be the foundation of their life. So not only are they viewing reality from well-being, but they're acting from well-being as a resource. So I want you to imagine the difference between taking action in your life from a place of safety or a place of worry, concern, and fear. And you guys know when there's worry, concern, and fear, your brain is like, right? It's like this ordinary mind, right?
Yeah.
We talk about, and we make that very clear so people can feel the palpable difference between acting in their life from ordinary mind and acting from an attuned, aligned place. Like think about listening to an instrument that's tuned versus an instrument that's not. It doesn't sound very good when it's not tuned. Once that tuning happens in the system, the actions that you take in your life are consistent with that foundation, with that well-being. And that's where, experiences like Amanda's starting to have left, right, and center, it boggles the mind because the mind is used to all this negative patterning, so to speak, about how things operate in the world. And you're so certain of this reality that things have to be hard, that relationships need to be difficult, that earning money is hard, that getting your health in order is this big long fucking experience, where it's really because so much of it is sourced from a place of fear and a lack of resource. And once that shifts, everything shifts. Your experience of reality completely does a 180. Mm-hmm.
Amanda, to wrap this up here,
Mm-hmm.
if you could go back and tell yourself something,
Mm-hmm.
like, because there's so many people I know, I used to be them, that just sit on the sideline, and we hear this all the time from clients that we work with, that they've read all these books by the time they found us, and they've hired coaches, and they've been to seminars, they watch these videos and listen to audiobooks, etc. And they keep looping in the same thing over and over because they're stuck in that mind observer mentality instead of actually having a healing experience. And so it keeps looping. Knowing what you've experienced now, what would you tell yourself, 2 years ago when you were kind of in that observer mode? Yeah.
Mm. Just that if it feels right in your soul, don't question that and just try it. Just take that first step, because I think any of us have that sense when something's really true for us, really right for us, whether we know what that feels like in our being or not.
Yeah.
We have a sense of it. And to just listen to that, to trust that, because that is alignment, whether you know what it is or not. And just follow that and just surrender to that and say yes.
Yeah.
If something's really feeling true about this work, even if it seems crazy or weird or you don't understand it at all, just trust it. Because the only way to really see this is to do it and be in it and be in that space with others. And the healing just happens to one degree or another. It just happens. And you don't have to push it or try or force it or anything. It's just there. And once you start to experience it, it just continues, because I really believe that's what's natural for our being and our system. And once you tap into that, you know, I anything can happen. So
Yeah.
I'm so excited to see what's next, because honestly, everyone, like, I've barely started this work. Like I'm just going into one of the advanced programs right now. But up until that, I've just barely scratched the surface, and so much has happened already.
Yeah, it's so
So
well said, and I love that
just
answer.
say
And
yes. Just say if you feel it, just say yes.
yeah,
So
You know,
yeah.
Amanda is just a great example, and why we wanted to bring her out here is because I know that there are things that we take people through that, because people don't understand or have any, there's not a lot of this work out there in the world. Um, it's not linear in a fashion where Guy and I used to sell Facebook products or train people on how to do Facebook ads. And it's very linear. It's like, I'm going to show you how to do X, Y, and Z, and you're going to replicate X, Y, and Z. This isn't that. And so what Amanda did, which was brilliant, it's like she sat on the sidelines for a while. Then an event came across her screen, and she was like feeling into it. She said, you know what? That feels like a yes. And she took the plunge. And at that time, we offered a different program, which Amanda was not able to join at that time, finances, etc. She ended up doing the 2-day event again. Like it wasn't, the 2-day event isn't a one-time only thing. She came, she did it again. And it was such a springboard into a whole new level of
Yeah.
consciousness for her. Yeah.
Yeah.
That all of a sudden she was able to go into a program that was even more expensive than the first one that we offered, but like she was in such a different place that it didn't even matter. And I think that speaks volumes to, I think someone wrote it in here, like step into the water, the water is fine. Noticing where our resistance is to taking action. And I promise you that it's not just about this here, right? It's the same thing that stops you from taking action in every area of life that you want to create shifts in.
Yep.
And creating the only way to shift out of that pattern, because really what's happening is there's just grooves that are happening in your brain that when a decision wants to come, it like jumps into this groove and it keeps repeating the same record over and over and over and over, whether that record is money, whether that record is time, whether that record is I'm not good enough, whether that record is this won't work for me, whether that record is I've tried things like this before, and whatever the record is, it's not new and it's going to continue. Amanda pointed to something genius, which is if you're making choices from your mind, you're going to stay stuck in those grooves. If you make choices from your heart, and you all have this skill, right? Like you've walked into a room and something said, I shouldn't be here right now. And you walked out. You've even put on a shirt, which happened to me upstairs earlier. And it's a shirt that you've worn dozens of times, but for whatever reason, you put it on that day and you're like, I'm not comfortable in this. And you take it off. But you've worn it before. Like, what? Explain that to me. So it's in us, right? Like we have that ability. Trust that. Just trust it. Amanda, I just want to honor you for listening to that part of you, for learning as you keep listening to that part of you, how juicy and brilliant and effortless and easy life gets to be. And yeah, I just hope that your story resonated and was inspirational for others to also take that kind of action in your life.
So why don't we tell them what the next step here would be then?
Yeah, you can always, this is what I highly recommend, right? You want to find out more about how we work here, what the opportunities are here. Guy and I have so much free content on this website, on this group. If you want to know, like, where can I go? What is the thing that's going to make a difference for me? My recommendation is this, and you can do with it what you will. If you see the link that Guy just put on there, callsatori.com. We actually offer a concierge call with one of our coaches. You can get on with her. Her name is Nikki. She's absolutely brilliant. Some of you have probably communicated with her here in the group. She's amazing. And it's a free coaching session. You can talk to her about the practices that you already have and she'll help you deepen them. You can ask questions about what's next and she'll direct you. Find out about if this feels like a good fit for you. We don't sell you anything on the calls at all. It's not a sales call. You don't need to pull out your credit card, like nothing. It's all entirely free. It's our way to give back because, like I said earlier, I know that this work is personal. Each one of you has your own stories, your own fears, your own patterns, your own programs. When you feel safety in your system, you will be able to live life in a completely different way. But there's only one way to do that, and that is to get on the court. You're not going to find safety in reading about it in a book or watching it on a video. So as much as I would love to transmit that to you over the airwaves right here, right now, so you can feel that, it's a little difficult. But when you're in these surroundings, like Amanda was talking about, when we create these, the live events, for example, we create a field and you literally walk into this field. And whether you know anything about this work or not, you're going to be impacted by this field. And that's what we're inviting you to. So book a call, callsatori.com, book it now. They go fast. Nikki's schedule fills up really fast. So if you're called to it, I would say take action on it immediately. And we look forward to having you in our group, in this family. Welcome to Old Souls and Seekers. Till we speak and till we connect. Many blessings and have an amazing day, my friend.
Amanda, thank you so much for being here. Guys,
Yeah,
thank you for
thank you.
your attention, your presence, and your time. We know that that's your absolute number one asset. We don't take that lightly. We love you guys very much. If you have questions, drop them in the comments below. Message Nikki directly. Message us directly. We're happy to help you as best as we possibly can. Like Elon said, thank you for being part of this amazing group. We have so much stuff coming down the pike of deep value to you, and the best way to take that next step is to go to callsatori.com, get on the phone with Nikki and have a chat and see if anything that we're up to here would serve your life. We love you very much. See you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, Amanda.